Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to learn a very important and basic topic in anatomy and physiotherapy. Anatomical plans and axis of the human body. This topic is important not only for anatomy exams and Viva but also for understanding human movements, exercise therapy, biomechanics and physiotherapy assessment. And don't worry, I will explain it in a very simple way with movements and examples. So let's start it. First, we need to understand the anatomical position. In anatomical position, a person is standing straight, facing forward, head and eyes looking forward, arms beside the body, palms facing forward, finger pointing downwards, feet facing forward. This position is our basic reference position for describing the human body. Now, what is a plan? An anatomical plan is an imaginary flat surface that passes through the human body and divides it into different parts. There are three main anatomical plans. First, sagittal plan. Second, frontal plan. Third, transverse plan. Let's understand each one with movements. First is the sagittal plan. Imagine a vertical line passing through the body and dividing into right and left parts. If the division is exactly equal, it is called the median or a mid-sagittal plan. The main movements that occurs in a sagittal plan are flexion and extension. For example, when I bend my elbow like this is elbow flexion, and when I straighten it, this is elbow extension. Other examples include hip flexion and extension, knee flexion and extension, and ankle dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. So remember, sagittal is equal to flexion and extension. Next is the frontal plan, also called the coronal plan. This plan is divided the body into anterior and posterior parts. The main movements are abduction and adduction. For example, when I move my arm away from the body, this is a shoulder abduction, and when I bring it back towards my body, this is a shoulder adduction. Another example is a hip abduction and adduction. Lateral flexion of the trunk is also mainly described in the frontal plan. So remember, frontal is equal to abduction and adduction. Now let's talk about the transverse plan. The transverse plan is a horizontal plan that divides the body into superior and inferior parts. The main movements associated with this plan are rotation. For example, if I rotate my shoulder inwards, that is the internal rotation, and if I rotate it outward, that is the external rotation. Rotation of the neck and the trunk in another example. So remember, transverse is equal to rotation. Now let's understand axis. An axis is an imaginary line around which a body part moves. There are three important axes: mediolateral axis, anteroposterior axis, and a vertical axis. Let's make them very easy. So first, mediolateral axis. The mediolateral axis runs from left to right. Movement occurring mainly in a sagittal plan happen around the axis. For example, elbow flexion and extension. So, sagittal plan in a mediolateral axis. Second, anteroposterior axis. The anteroposterior axis runs from front to back. Movements occurring mainly in the frontal plan happens around this axis. For example, shoulder abduction and adduction. So, frontal plan in a anteroposterior axis. Third, vertical axis. The vertical axis runs from top to bottom. Movements occurring mainly in the transverse plan happen around this axis. For example, shoulder internal and external rotation. So, transverse plan in a vertical axis. Now, let's make the whole topic very easy to remember. Remember, SM, sagittal mediolateral. FA, frontal anteroposterior. TV, transverse vertical. So simply remember SM, FA and TV. Now let's apply this to physiotherapy. First example, bicep curl. When you perform a bicep curl movement, elbow flexion, plan, sagittal plan, axis, mediolateral axis. Second example, shoulder lateral raise. When you raise your arm sideways, movement shoulder abduction, plan frontal plan, axis anteroposterior axis. Third example, trunk rotation. When you rotate your trunk, movement rotation, plan transverse plan, axis vertical axis. Fourth, squat. During a squat, there is a mainly hip flexion, knee flexion and ankle dorsiflexion. These movements are primary in the sagittal plan around the mediolateral axis. So let's revise everything in just a few seconds. Sagittal, right, left, flexion, extension, mediolateral axis, frontal, anterior, posterior, abduction, adduction, anterior, posterior axis. Transverse, superior, inferior, rotation, vertical axis. And the most important rule is movement occurs in a plan around an axis that is perpendicular to that plan. So that's it for today's video. I hope anatomical plans and axes are now much easier for you to understand and remember. If this video helped you to, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. For more simple and exam-oriented physiotherapy and anatomy content, I'll see you in the next video. Keep learning, keep moving and keep helping. Bye.